I'm really curious about what truly happens inside my body when I eat sugar, and why or where does it not get processed, and how does that actually work? Hey, hey, hey. How you guys doing? If you don't know, I'm Dr. Ben. I am the first ironclad, and I'm going to try to get on here and answer some of your guys' questions really briefly. I know that this is probably an earlier time. I think it's about 4:15 in the afternoon here. I'm working in one of my practices right now in the city of Maasbree. This is on the River Maas on the border of Germany. I thought I got 20 minutes. I think I'll just hop on here, do a little spontaneous thing. This isn't really planned. It's kind of like off the cuff. And yeah, I'm trying to reach out to you guys. What I want to do is, as I said, we said we're going to be reaching out to you. We've been working on getting some messages sent out to you guys, you awesome Facebook group members, to connect to you all. And ask you really simple questions like, what can we do to make this group better for you? I love that our group is small and kind of intimate, and we really, really help people. And I want to get to know you all, and I want to help you. So I reached out to Alyssa, Alyssa, I hope you're watching. I'm going to have to learn how to tag. Maybe I can figure out how you tag somebody in here. But anyway, I'll tag you afterwards. I'm not much of a tech guy, you know. So Alyssa asked an awesome question, and I thought I would just make a quick Facebook Live about this. She really asked, I'm really curious about what truly happens inside my body when I eat sugar, and why or where does it not get processed, and how does that actually work? Well, great question, Alyssa. I'm taking the time out of my busy day just to answer this specifically for you and for anybody else who wants to get the information. I really, really hope that any of you who have any questions, just reach out and do that. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if I don't know the answer, you know what I'm going to say? I don't really know. But I got a couple ideas about this one. And not just like, I think why this is so important, as the Ironclad Warriors know, we know a lot about this answer and we learn a lot about it. And it's a very essential part of what we do in Ironclad. It is one of the key things for the diabetics. You know, all diabetics in Ironclad reverse their diabetes. We've got a 100% success rate with that, and they learn why they're in the problem, and most importantly, why they need to transform. Sugar. The first thing to ask yourself over sugar is, where do you find in nature, right, sugar? Why is sugar in like all this stuff that we eat? Why is it so hard to avoid it? What happens to your body when you eat it? Well, I think most diabetics know. Like she asked, it's a processing thing. You know, what actually happens is when you eat sugar, especially like I think what she means by sugar is what we call sucrose, which is 1 part fructose and one part glucose. Now the glucose part is really important because our brain and our bodies and other really our organs and our cells function. Glucose is like the number one thing in our bodies that we use for energy. It's like the super big fuel. Our brain functions on that. In fact, even if you're not eating any sugar, your body has to make glucose from stuff like, for example, fat. Right? That's what we want, right? If we want to lose weight, we want to break our fat into sugar so we can burn it in our cells, right? That's a process that's called ketosis. The ketogenic diet is based around doing that, kind of pushing the body to do that, create that kind of an idea. So that's a really, really important thing to understand. That's how it happens. But what happens? Well, let's make another step back. So, like for example, maltose, like from malt sugar. Have you ever had like a malt beverage? Maltose is basically built from those types of things. It's a complex. Maltose is two pieces of glucose stuck together. We call that maltose. If it's glucose and fructose meaning from fruit, right? That is what we call table sugar. We call that sucrose. So mainly the thing that we're talking about with sugar is that. But basically, all sorts of things get broken down into what we commonly refer to as sugar. Any sort of starch that you eat, like pasta or bread or all manner of different kinds of starches, right, gets broken down as sugar. Rice gets broken down into sugar. These chains of things get broken down into things that we transform them into sugar. So why is sugar such a bad thing? Why isn't it such a good thing? Well, the reason that it's such a bad thing is because, interestingly enough, it's so important. Because our bodies are wired through evolution to run on sugar, we have certain cells that always are open. You can kind of think of it like a door to a house, like a room to a house. Like I'm in my business right now. There's a window behind me. Let's say this window behind me, right, is a hormonal opening that has a key that I can open it. Let's say the window's locked, and the key that's going to open this window is called insulin. It's a hormone. So what happens is when I stick the key in the window, it opens up, and then the wind can come inside. The air can come inside, and that air, right, is sugar. It's really important because basically in some cells in our body, the window is always open. Like, for example, in a nerve cell, it never closes. It's always open. Like our brains are always open. Like some cells in our eyes are always open. That means that if there's lots and lots of wind outside, it's going to be blowing in here. Let's say it's rainwater. It's going to blow all this, get our room full of all kinds of air and water and all that kind of stuff. And in our bodies, if our cells get clogged full of sugar, it can become toxic. It can fill up with so much stuff in here that our bodies can't function. I can't work in this room if it's full of water, for example, right? Or it's too cold, let's say, right? So a lot of this sort of stuff that we have with sugar, our bodies need to be kind of picky about what happens. We all know that when we eat sugar, it increases our blood sugar, right? And there's only one thing that gets our blood sugar in our blood down, and that is the hormone insulin. That's the only thing that does it. So if we're continually eating large amounts of sugar, our cells are constantly in this bath of a lot of sugar, right? And then it starts to be toxic for some of our organs. Our body can't function in a high sugar environment. It can be really bad for us. So what our body does is secretes insulin into the cells, the window's open, and all the sugar comes out of our blood and goes into the cells, into different cells. Some cells are always open for sugar, right? Like our brain cells, for example. They're always open for sugar. Other cells can close the windows, can allow the windows not to be open to protect themselves from getting too much sugar inside of them. And what you have when you get a lot of those cells that close their window, we call that insulin resistance. It's the first step to diabetes. So what happens with sugar depends on where you are. Depends on how your body functions. It depends on how much sugar that you have. But generally, when people have problems with sugar, what they have become is they become insulin resistant. That they've been eating too much sugar, or their body has had too high levels of sugar in their blood over a longer period of time, and it becomes toxic to some things. When there's high levels of sugar, it affects our immune systems. When there's high levels of sugar, it affects organs like our liver. Our livers get clogged with fat because they're trying to, what our livers will do is we'll take all those sugars and chunk them together into a fat molecule and we'll store it. But then our liver gets clogged up with fat. Our body cells, our fat cells open up and try to get all that sugar in there, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is why we get obese. This is why we gain weight. All this stuff boils down to, and all comes back to that one thing, which is sugar. And it really comes down to the fact that sugar is what our bodies really want. It's why we like sugar so much. It's why we're drawn to that. It's why we become addicted to it. So, what happens when you eat sugar? Your blood sugar goes up. Your body wants to keep that blood sugar in a range. It doesn't want to be too low, because if blood sugar goes too low, you die. But if it goes too high, you also die. So it needs to be kept in this specific range where it's a sort of sweet spot. And the body uses insulin to do that. But as we use more and more insulin, the body kind of gets in. It's just like any drug or anything that you're taking. You know, anybody, if you drink a lot of alcohol, you become kind of immune to it. If you're eating a lot of sugar, your cells become kind of immune to that through the use of insulin. The insulin keeps getting released, and that's what we call type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is interesting in the fact that the body doesn't make insulin at all. There's some sort of a immune system problem. There's a couple different ways that it can happen, but where the islet cells of Langerhans in your pancreas don't make insulin, and when they don't make insulin, then sugar levels are always really high. So I hope that helps. We don't really go into too deep depth into this in Ironclad because Ironclad's super duper simple. It's more about how do you fix that whole thing. And the interesting thing about fixing it, especially for the long term, it really doesn't boil down to, like, I don't know what you would say, the simple things. What the thing really boils down to fixing this problem is transformation. It's really learning about, well, why do I struggle with this? Why do I want that? Like a lot of people say when they start Ironclad, they couldn't believe that they could change the way that they eat. And then suddenly these things that they used to love, they don't want to eat them anymore. And some of the stuff that you eat in the beginning, in the end, you're like, this is way too sweet. I can't even stand it anymore. I remember that feeling myself when I first started. So anyway, it is wonderful to talk to you. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, Alyssa, for the wonderful, fantastic, Alyssa, you for your question. Dr. Ben here. Going to see you later. I got to get back to treating patients. And of course, if you're always curious about Ironclad, you can always reach out to Cayenne Issa, and I think I'll have her put some posts in here as well. We're going to be doing some more stuff. We've got a couple Ironclad warriors, members of our group who want to come in and say hi. I think our amazing Ironclad assistant, international Ironclad executive assistant, Renelin, will also be doing something soon with y'all and reaching out to you too. So love you guys, really, I do. Wonderful to be here with you. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for your question. I hope this helps, and if I didn't answer it clearly enough, if you have any other follow-up questions, post them down below, and I will answer them up, maybe either in texting or maybe I'll hop on another Facebook Live. And any other questions you guys want answered, please hit me up. Love to do it. Love to help you. That's what I'm here for. That's what we're here for, to help each other live a healthy, fantastic life. You know, I want you guys to live the best lives that you can. That's what we do. Okay? All right. Gotta go. Gotta go help more people. Bye-bye.